Greetings and welcome to the Lone Star State, Texas, USA, Circuit of the Americas, just outside of Austin. Hello and welcome to LMU Fridays, the Sprint Championship on RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina. We'll hear from Amy a little bit later. And as always, Ted Edwards behind the cameras, providing you the excellent pictures and action on the racetrack. Katrina, welcome in. Welcome to the United States, and welcome to a state where everything's bigger, including the racetracks, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here in America at COTA, seeing these cars race around the track.
It's going to be very interesting to see just what they get on doing here. We have had, and we'll get the elephant out of the room, Katrina, quite quickly. We have had a significant amount of race teams that have not come to Circuit of the Americas today, opting to not participate in today's race, and that has had a little bit of a detriment or a deficit to our grid. Several cars, 4 or 5 of them that I can count.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like COTA drivers maybe have more of a love-hate relationship with it than we do sitting up here, looking down upon all the cars on the track. So I definitely think that's played a part of it. I think some people may not like this track as much as some of the other tracks that we have raced at.
It is divisive, Circuit of the Americas. It is a 20-turn racetrack, and on top of that, we have 3.4 miles. That's not particularly remarkable, but 10 turns to the left, 10 to the right, or 9 one way, or 11 the other way, depending on who you ask. We'll get Ryan Gill's weigh in on it if he wins tonight's race. More on that in a minute. It's 5.5 kilometers around, opened up in 2012, and since then has hosted all forms of motorsports and has a humongous turn one they call Big Red, which is also a soda in this part of the world, by the way. And but it's 5 stories tall, and it's a 5-story climb and then nearly a 5-story drop down to turns 2 and 3. We'll become intimately familiar with that. And the reason I bring that up is not only is it interesting as far as topography is concerned, Katrina, it's going to play and wreak havoc on the setups on these race cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we can definitely look forward to. As it looks like so far, we have a nice, dry and track, and it continues to stay that way. So something else that will play into effect will be the way that the drivers handle the cars around COTA.
I think you're absolutely right. Ryan Gill will take no further part in qualifying. Remember, it's a split qualifying. The first 10 minutes of the 20-minute session for LMGT3. The second 20 minutes is for hypercars only. So in about a couple of seconds, qualifying will end for the LMGT3s. All flying laps will still count, meaning that if you are on a valid lap, you are allowed to finish it. But right now, the hypercars have just been released from the pit lane and are thundering up to turn number 1. Looks like Klaus Nyring looking for a pole position in the 155 Ferrari over Christoph Estrepa's McLaren in second. And it's, frankly, Katrina, it's not even close.
No, absolutely not. Klaus obviously wanting to come back and has come back stronger at the minute after his DNF from last round.
Daniel Durrett 1.5 seconds off, and Ryan Gill 1.7, and that's from a driver who has been on a little bit of a tear recently, but he hasn't always had to qualify on pole to get it done. Klaus out there just maybe defending just in case, but with that big of a gap, he really probably won't have to defend too much. Everybody's down on their time, not even setting personal best. Callum Kerrigan for GR Racing, one of those. But of course, if they're on a valid lap, they get to finish those laps, and he will not. He's going to come down into the pit lane, and that should just about do it for qualifying. Mike Redford actually still out there.
And absolutely 2 green sectors for Mike as he's continuing around. So we'll see if he improves on his time of 8th position.
Final minutes here of LMGT3 qualifying. Just listening to the sounds of some of the cars out there in LMU. I don't know about y'all, but I'm waiting the 5th and final pack coming out in Q2. for this current content pass. Got so many great ones that you never can have enough car and track choices, but still anxiously awaiting it myself. I'm actually sort of anxiously awaiting the next announcement for LMU, potentially here on Fridays, and maybe, hopefully, with the inclusion of the new GT cars, because we have had a content pass come out since this championship started, and I'd be very curious to see how some of those cars go on, but I haven't heard anything official, though I am anxiously awaiting that.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing more and more come to LMU as time goes on and we become more familiar with it, and the racing drivers become more familiar with it.
7 minutes left of qualifying. The hypercars out there today, and the big elephant in the room, Katrina, no Gottschalk in the field. No Gottschalk for the final 2 rounds of the championship. He has retired that car from the series.
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw it earlier, I was surprised after obviously he had a great, fantastic like round 2 and stuff, and was up there contending with up on podium places. So it's a shame to see any driver decide not to continue racing, but unfortunately it does happen.
2 DNFs in a row for the Toyota Gazoo racing car in the hypercar class, and that has led to them withdrawing from the series, rather unfortunately. And you hate to see it, but you can almost understand. Gottschalk has been so close, and most of the season as Richard Whittle has stacked it, and they've ended up. No, I thought they ended up the wrong way around on the racetrack. They didn't. They were still pointed vaguely the correct direction in the WRT BMW hypercar. They have had to get it settled the other direction there. Adam Kapslar's coming into the pit lane, and I can't imagine why unless they're practicing a pit stop mid-quali here. A couple of cars doing some interesting things. We don't normally see this.
Yeah, it's odd, and maybe I'm thinking maybe he didn't put maybe enough fuel or something in his car, and he's trying to maximize the time of having less fuel, maybe.
I wonder if maybe they're trying. It's very true. I wonder if they're trying something out and they realize that the tires are still good, and it's not worth having to warm up a new set of tires by resetting the pit lane. There's no tire warmers, no tire blankets in this series. There are. It is available in LMU. It is not selected for this particular championship, so it will take a lap or 2 to warm those tires up, those Michelins. So instead of doing that, they may be doing exactly what you just said, coming in, putting more fuel in it, keeping some heat, because they will cool off anyway, but keeping some relative heat in the car and making the best out of their 10 minutes. It looks like Louis Kearton on provisional pole, a 52.8 to Van Driesch's 3/10. Yours makes no difference, 3.5 tenths off. Then it's Facekiss, who is a further 2/100ths off of the second place car, and a little over 3.5 tenths, 36/100ths off of the overall pace. Rodriguez, a little bit bigger gap in 4th in the Alpine, and Skidnov, who I think has not been with us for a week or 2. I don't recall seeing the number 15 BMW in there in at least last week's race, but back again this week nonetheless. Ooh, huge twitch there by Van der Velken, and that is a new sign-up, I'm pretty sure. Van der Velken in that car, so we now have an additional Lamborghini. And how about we go on board and go for a lap around here? Katrina, tell us about turn number 1. Huge rise into that first corner.
Yeah, it goes very up.
It does go very up. It's a 5-story climb. The start-finish line's vaguely right there, and it doesn't look that bad until you get to the plateau. 5 stories up. This turn called Big Red, and it very much is a hard turn. Not quite a 180, and you go back down the hill to turns number 2, and then the S's start. You either love them or hate them. You get them wrong, you hate them. If you nail it, it feels like motoring bliss. I promise you that. don't take too many bites of the cherry. You'll be over the anti-cut curves, and you potentially will be spun out. One other thing about the hypercars as we enter turn 6 and 7, going back uphill again, is you can't let off the throttle a lot. You sort of set your throttle position, and you've got to carry that momentum mid-corner, because if you don't, you can spin around. Blue flags being adhered to because Van der Velken not on a fast lap right now. He has to let the other car through. I'd assume that's Skidanov who just went through, but turn 11, not quite another 180, but down the humongous back straight, more than a mile of straight before we get to the tight leg left-hander of turn number 12. There's only 2 corners that are named on this course, the first and the last corner, and we'll get to the last one in just a moment. Turns 13 and 14, I love this section because not a lot of people get it right. It's a double apex, and it's unsighted, and this is a corner where cars will get themselves into quite a bit of trouble. Turn number 15, as it's very easy to get into that pinch point, and another double apex, 16, 17, and 18. And this is where you'll see a lot of muscling, a lot of jockeying for position. There's several different lines that work through there. Turn 19, you'll see a lot of motorsport. A lot of cars go wide here. You got to be wary of that for track limits. And then the final turn, turn number 20, down the pit straight again. And that is a lap around the 3.4 mile or 5.5 kilometer circuit of the Americas. It's a lot to take in.
It absolutely is, but whilst we were on board, I just want to point out that we had a fastest lap a pole lap for Face Kiss, but it's been absolutely, as per usual, Adam has come through in his car and he's set that fastest lap. So it's always good to see these two at the top, but they seem to be setting great lap times. Good competition, and they're both wanting that top spot and fighting for the top position in the overall standings as well.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the tale of this season is Adam Kapslar getting it done in qualifying. Sometimes it hasn't worked out in the race, but looking good today nonetheless. Barnabas has responded in the Total Energies Peugeot. He's half a second down on the ultimate pace, but it was still his quickest personal best, sector number 1, and he's coming through the sector right now. We should see sector 2 pop up, looking pretty decent. We'll see just how up or down he is when he gets to the timing and the scoring line. Unless I'm very much mistaken, it should have been already up, unless he's invalidated, Katrina, in which case it will not populate. And I think that's exactly what's happened there. Well spotted by our broadcaster, Thomas Edwards. And that it was indeed what happened.
But we'll have a chance at another lap because he's still got 16 seconds. So hopefully he can get it done, can keep it clean, and get through and do another lap.
Kapslar takes his own personal best time and the session best time in Sector 1, was slow in the middle sector, still on a valid lap as far as we know. Current provisional pole, a 51.1, over 1 second quicker than anyone else thus far, almost looking like a carbon copy of LMGT3 quali. Will it be a pickup? And it is! It's a 50.983, a couple of tenths extra in the bank. Adam Kapslar in a completely different league right now in that Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably has the biggest smile. Just waiting to see whether, Face Kiss can come up the back and, and take, but he can't. So, and we just see Pettit go through actually for second place. So that knocks Barnabas down into P3.
It's a Ferrari lockout of the front row. Not technically teammates, that 83 and the 51, but there are no teammates here anyway, as it's a single driver championship. A couple of drivers we do know, Katrina, will have an alliance, some of which the Kaiju guys not here today. The SJ&H guys, I also fear, are not here as well. Barnabas Facekiss will have the last sort of dash here in quali. The time expired, flying laps counting. He's set a personal best in Sector 1 again, though this personal best still slower than his previous, and I wonder if he's invalidated again. He may still be on a lap, I don't know. He's got to have invalidated by now. There's no way. Yeah, he's coming across the line. That was also an additional invalidation. So Barnabas Facekiss going down to third. Pettit will help the front row lockout and make it a little bit closer. in the hypercar class, 2/10 the difference between pole and second place. Katrina, you got a question in the chat. Ash Bibby's asking, does Katrina ooh? I don't think it's appropriate to ask a woman that. It's all funny when it's the boys, but unless Katrina wants to start a new career, I don't know. Here is the results from qualifying in the hypercar class, and I will not elaborate on that. Adam Kapslar, 50.983 over David Pettick. The Ferrari lockout in tow. Barnabas Facekiss, don't count out that Peugeot, even though it is over a second behind. Louis Kirton continuing their excellent drive in fourth place in the Porsche. And Michelle Rodriguez, I feel like every single week starts fifth in that number 35 Alpine. Ramos, Dries, Skidnov, Roche, Acker, the top 10 in hypercar. Vander Veken and Richard Withel will make out the rest of our hypercar grid. Onto the LMGT3s, Klaus Neiring, another impressive qualifying, a 206.764, good enough for pole, almost one entire second over Christoph Estrepa in the 95 McLaren. Daniel Durrett will start third, 1.5 seconds off. Ryan Gill, who's been on a charge as of late, including that thrilling race 1 week ago, will start in fourth on the second row of the grid. Callum Kerrigan, 1.8 seconds off, will start inside the top 5 in their Ferrari. Behind them, it's Matt Malcolm. Oh, it's my stepson, Cormac Malloy, in 7th place. Wow, what a speedy speedster he's turning into be in that McLaren. Mike Redford, Ibiza, and Buckley round out your top 10, and I think your only qualifiers in LMGT3. Well, one final thing to do before we go racing here today, and that's look at the championship. And Katrina, you got to say, Adam on pole position, looking good, even considering his DNF in the 5th round of this championship. It is close between him and Facekiss. Facekiss, though, it has to be said, has all the work to do today.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with Pettick behind, wanting to gain some points and be up there, and challenging for that second place from Facekiss. So all to watch today, all to look forward to, and yeah, I'm looking forward to watching everybody race.
It is Kapslar, 3 points over Facekiss. It's as tight as it could be, and even if they finished first and third today like they lined up, which they probably won't, because that's why we race, but if they did, nothing would be settled going into the final round next week. So unless there is a catastrophic departure from one of them, we expect this to proceed throughout. The back half of the hypercar field is still just as close. Fonza Martins, Gottschalk, who has retired from the championship and the last 2 races on the trot, but all of those cars, including Mikel Ramos, very close indeed in the championship, and ignore the disqualification for Nicholas Keller. That's just the way the results appear when they've signed out. Moving on to LMGT3, we've got a little bit more clarity here. Christoph Estrepa has yet to finish outside the top 5 in their highly competitive category, and that includes their very first win a week or so ago. Brilliant driving from them. Ryan Gill having just a horrible first 3 races of the season, but getting it back together and has not finished off of the podium. Klaus Neiring completing the podium there in close competition with Dan Van Zutphen, who double DNF for Klaus and Zutphen in the last round. Phil Vick, Willamette, Buckley, Lindner, Jackson, Beckett, your current top 10. Well, it's close in both categories, you got to say. And for me personally, I don't think it's done in LMGT3. As you know, Katrina, one bad finish from Verstappen, it's going to be knotted back up again.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we have seen him be very strong and very, just consistent, maybe not winning every race, but being there and being on there. So it's looking forward to seeing what everybody can do in the GT3 field today.
Well, as we check out for today's race at Circuit of the Americas, 60 minutes, a pit stop not required, but almost required by the efficiency police out there. It's now time we take a moment and say hello to our newest commentator who is watching in the wings and learning today. Amy, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jesse and Katrina, for having me. And also, I just want to say a big thank you to the RCA community for welcoming me to the landmark racing stream of Circuit of America in Texas. If you did not know, obviously Texas was famous for their tasty barbecue and the home of the NASA space station. So I will be here learning the ropes and being your new eyes and ears, and excited to be a new voice for RCI. I am looking forward to what this race brings and others to follow. So back to you, Jesse and Katrina, and thanks again.
Good start here, as we'll hear from Amy at the end and get her opinion on what has transpired throughout today. And Matt Malcolm, I think, has got a penalty, and Mike Redford doing a normal Mike Redford routine where he's starting from the pit lane. That is the safest place to start here at Circuit of the Americas. Capslar was unchallenged on the initial start. Pettit gets through, and looks like Louis Kierton has done Barnabas Fazekiss for third place. That's not good for Barnabas in the championship hunt. All that considered, they were 3 wide. Katrina, though, they got single file really quickly after turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. They all just found a space, didn't they? And they've kind of just slotted into it, which is always a safe bet when going through the starting point of this track.
One of the Lamborghinis, I believe that to be Velkin working their way through. It isn't. It's the 63, not the 19. That's Van Driesche. That is indeed Zeno Van Driesche who's making their way through. Now, did they have a spot of bother, or were they somewhere behind? I don't know, but this is going to be very dangerous. Completely off of the racetrack down the back straight there, passing 2 cars who are fighting and potentially fighting for the lead of the race in LMGT3, and I think they are. Klaus Neiring being overtaken here by Christoph Verstrepe on the opening lap, but the track is going to favor Klaus Neiring here in their Ferrari, the Spirit of the Race 155, and this is exactly what I was talking about on the sighting lap. Just because you have the position doesn't mean you're going to get to keep it due to the switchback nature, and here they go again. Up the inside, it is going to be Christoph Verstrepe, and now he's going to be muscled out, but he's going to get a run again in this double apex. Watch Klaus Neiring try to not push it too wide. Verstrepe trying to keep as close to the inside as humanly possible, and he has defeated Verstrepe for the time being. Klaus Neiring, after a huge attack here on lap 1, is able to hold fast and keep the lead.
Yeah, I don't think this will be the last that we see of these two on this track today. I think they're going to be at each other's tails most of the start in laps, so definitely something to look out for.
Looked like Kerrigan almost sideways right there trying to come through the final corner, and we'll see how that works out. Matt Malcolm down the pit lane, being told by Thomas that might be a penalty. Ellis Buckley might have something else going on, however. This might be a get me out of traffic, get the stop done early, but we do know, Katrina, right, that these cars with their virtual energy, the LMGT3s anyway, they can just about go the entire distance. Oh, no, that was also a penalty for Ellis Buckley. Did not stop. So Malcolm and Buckley for LMGT3, both serving penalties on infractions on the start.
Not exactly the way that you want to start out the race, Jesse, to be honest, by getting a cheeky little drive-through penalty. But what it does do is it resets you. You're out on the track, you've got some space, you can put your head down and get back into it and hopefully make up some spaces.
Peter Roche trying to get their head down and get back in it themselves and take a spot away from the BMW of Ekar, and they're able to do it here. And I think that was sort of more of a, yeah, you got there, just don't hold me up anymore. And that's sort of the name of the game here. You lose time. And when I say you lose time, you hemorrhage time here when you are side by side most of the way. Sector 3, not so much because there's so many different lines, but everywhere else, if you're not on the line, it is a pain in the rear. And Cormac Malloy, I don't, you know what? I don't know what we're feeding him, but he's been racing a lot of AMS2 recently, a little bit of ACC in there. I saw him practicing LMU this week, and I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it's his ADHD, but he's just able to get in the car and have pace. And this is incredible. You've got Ryan Gill, who is probably the hottest driver in LMGT3 right now. despite not leading the championship. And then you've got a true rookie, Cormac Malloy, right there behind him. If you're Ryan Gill, Katrina, what do you feel about this? You know Cormac Malloy. He works here at RCI. But beyond that, you've never raced against him, and he's coming up behind you.
Yeah, I think I'd be a bit worried. I'm not gonna lie, seeing the speed and determination that Malloy looks like he has. If I was Gil, I'd be a little bit worried. But obviously, as a racing driver, you have to keep a clear head and just keep your eyes forward, and hopefully the person behind doesn't catch up too bad. It looks like that Kerrigan is obviously trying to keep on Malloy's tail anyway, so hopefully that will distract him long enough for Gil to have a little bit of space and a little bit of leeway.
Callum Kerrigan, the opposite of Cormac Malloy. Callum Kerrigan has he's a purveyor of sims, is Callum Kerrigan. He likes the challenge. He likes racing in general, and he has a lot of experience. So this is the rookie versus the crafty veteran here for a top 5 spot. Just reading back through the chat, Katrina, you have confirmed that Ted does the ooh-woos in the family. I don't doubt that, and also gross. Also, Cormac, if you watch this back on repeat, Ash has repetitively called you Normie and Normac. I have not done that out of respect for you. There's nothing normal about starting your very first LMU race and being inside the top half of the field, but that's just how Cormac rolls, I think. Klaus Nyring continues to lead Verstappen. That gap still within a second. They have left Daniel Durrett in third place, 5 seconds the gap behind, and Zeno Van Drieschen at pit lane. And I think this is an early stop on purpose to get out of traffic, to get away from everybody. They should be good to go to the end, though our broadcaster disagrees with me. He thinks it's too early.
Look, Jesse, we had our first, no stopper last week. I fully think that, if they think about it and they're safe and, they know what they're doing and they're calculated about it, I think we can see him go to the end. Hopefully didn't pick up too much damage. I think we saw him a bit further back in the field, so hopefully there's no damage there and he can just get back out on track time.
I did see a wrinkle in that fender, or at least I thought I saw a wrinkle in that fender, unless that was a shadow maybe cast by the pit lane. It very well could have been, but either way, they have done their stop, and you're very right. We did see a no stopper, and I'm curious to see if they've done the math here and have figured out that if they go out there, if they pit with 53 minutes left to go, which is when they came in, and they run around on a lean or a balanced fuel mix, that they can get their virtual energy to the end. It's not the actual fuel in the car that's the problem. It's that hybrid system, that virtual energy system that requires them to come to pit road. No other reason. They cannot make it 60 minutes. Hypercars typically about 45 or so. But to your point, if they figured it out, if they realize now it's more advantageous to go out there on a lean mixture. Oh, Matt Malcolm has gone off and will go to the tail end of the LMGT3 field there. And that car definitely looks to be carrying damage on the front.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that LMU is not very forgiving when it comes to damage, so if they're carrying a little bit of damage, it can be very detrimental to the race. And
speaking of very detrimental to the race, remember when I said you don't want to be side by side through Sector 1? That's exactly what they're doing, and they just about get it sorted out. But, Katrina, I got to say, looking at that tire strategy, we haven't seen this in a few weeks, but it's back.
And I'm excited for it. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, last week we saw a solid, a solid set of whatever tire they were on last week. Because Katrina's forgotten already. But the fact that we've got a mix, that's the one. Wet tires. Thank you, Thomas. The fact that we have a mixed build makes me excited.
This is going to be interesting. I'm going to assume that because this is an anti-clockwise or a counterclockwise, depending on what part of the world you're from, I would assume that they are using hard tires on one of the right sides, because you can use an odd tire here. I am being told that if you pay attention, and you can see the red banding, that BMW of Jensen Ackart, you can look at that and tell the red banding on the front of the tire, that is a hard tire. The yellow banding on the Michelin's, that's medium. So they have elected 2 hard tires on the front, which tells me this track is super abrasive and it's scrubbing front tires, and they have attempted to alleviate that by using a harder compound.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see that Louis Curtin up in third place has chosen to do that, and obviously going through this, we've still got 50 minutes. We've still got plenty of time for the tire wear, to wear away. But it will be great to see, what the outcome of that is.
Same thing on Louis Curtin, by the way. That Porsche Penske, 2 hard front tires, 2 medium rear tires, which is allowed. You can even get crazier with it. You can put, we saw that at Sebring. We saw that at some other racetrack. I think Fuji. In fact, we saw them using 1 hard left rear tire to keep the temperature out of it and keep life into the tire. And it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. This is just not strategy that we're used to seeing in other sims like ACC, for instance. It's just not really viable, but it is viable here. And it is incredibly curious to see this used. We've seen it used to great effect and to great detriment in the past, but several cars, including one in the top 5, has elected 2 hard front tires, 2 medium rear tires, and only time will tell. That's the glorious part about pioneering, Katrina. Only time's going to tell. Oh no! Ryan Gill has had an incident coming off the Andretti turn down the pit straight.
This is not what Ryan wanted for his race today. I can tell you that for a fact. It definitely isn't, the Ryan that we've seen the past couple of weeks. It seems to, maybe not be as confident on this track, or I'm sure. Did we not hear him say last week that he'd raced COTA a few times, like he felt confident? Or am I making it up? I could be making it up.
I think that may be what he told us, but knowing Ryan personally, I don't think he likes this place very much. I think this would be the bargain bin of racetracks for him. Is the only. I think there's several drivers that think that, but I think Ryan's one of those. He's not a particular COTA fan, and David Pettick here looking for a defense on Louis Curtin, and you have to say those tires on Louis's car seem to be working an absolute treat. Oh, goes wide there, does Louis Curtin. Can we just, for a moment, marvel at how good Louis Curtin, obviously everyone making their debut season here in LMU, and here he goes. He's going to have an opportunity. Got caught short was Pettick, has to back out of it, over the curb. Here comes Barnabas Fazekas. Fazekas was shuffled out on the start, went down to 4th or 5th place, and now the Peugeot back up there. The Total Energies number 93, able to take a position away from Louis. It looked like the Porsche Penske was about to take a spot, and then suddenly, here comes Fazekas back up into 3rd place.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic racing, to the point where I grabbed my table because I was so
excited. Here we go again. I'm glad that somebody else does that around here. I do that all the time. Louis just about locks it up. You don't really lock up a hypercar so much. It's hard to explain. It just sort of doesn't stop. I mean, you can lock it up, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really go straight to locking like you would imagine it does. It just does not stop quickly, and you just sort of like continue to drive on. It makes it look like you're not turning because you lose your turning ability, but because the tires aren't smoking or locked, it's a bit of a strange one. Speaking of a strange one, Buckley has retired the car, and also Ryan Gill.
Not the time for him. He has DNF'd, unfortunately, which is not obviously ideal of what we want to see with him up there on the championship lead in the standings.
Wow, that's going to be it on the championship, right? You have to think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Klaus Nyring is a little bit too far away. I'd have to do the maths and think about it, but I think he's a little bit too far away to take the championship away, or at least it will be really, really unusual for him to, we'd have to see Verstappen not do well at all for the next 2 rounds.
Oh my goodness, close quarters racing here. Peter Roche trying to gain some spots using the cars in the LMGT3 class as a pick, and they're all having to sort their way through this, of course. And LMGT3s, they have just as much right to the racetrack as anyone else. See the the track warning lights, the hazard lights, or the indicator lights, status lights, I think is what they're called in modern context, flashing blue. That indicates that you are about to be overtaken by a quicker car. Huge slide right there out of a car, but able to keep it all together there. And that's about all these cars do, Katrina. They don't spin out like that with the drive systems in these cars, but they will get loose. And if you're a savvy driver, you can almost use that slide to your advantage to get it to rotate a little bit more. But it looks evil when it happens, though.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you know how to control it, then I'm sure it's fine. I'd be a mess, you know. But these drivers are pros.
The scariest thing about these cars is, and I was telling our broadcaster this, I was mentioning something that I noticed dynamic-wise on tracks like this, and we saw this at Fuji where there were a couple of cars, I think Richard Whittle was one of them, that kept spinning out in the carousel corner there, and we've seen it a couple of other places too, and it looks very strange just like the car goes. What's happening is they're loaded up on the suspension in a corner and they're letting off the throttle, and it's basically de-wedging or deloading the rear of the car, and with no weight there, it just goes around. That hasn't been a problem today, but I would reckon it might be as we get further into this race with the tire wear being what it should be here. Certainly the tire wear is high enough, the degradation anyway, that several of the drivers, nearly half of them in fact, have elected a harder compound on some of them, and I wonder if that is to combat traction loss later on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing to think about, obviously, on a track like this. It's definitely something that obviously the drivers have put a lot of thought into as well, which is always lovely to see.
Well, this battle was for P5. It's now for P4 with Ryan Gill's DNF here today. Cormac Malloy making his debut here on LMU Fridays. Callum Thingbutt. And this is a battle that may persist. Neither one of them have flinched thus far. Callum Kerrigan is a calculated driver. I think he'd agree that he's not going to be the one to make rash moves most of the time. He's the sit and wait kind of guy. I like that. I respect that kind of driver. And that wasn't Callum missing the corner right there either. I sound like a Callum Kerrigan apologist, but I'm serious. He wasn't missing the corner. Really what he was doing, he was offsetting himself to Cormac in case Cormac didn't get off the corner. That way Callum would have a run and be able to set him up in the next corner. And that's what you can do in Sector 3. You can't do that in Sector 1 and 2. You can get away with that in Sector 3 because it's just as quick either way. But now they've got hypercar traffic coming up on them. They've got to be very careful here.
Just a quick note from Ryan Gill. He said he pushed the tyres too hard, overheated, and ended up in the wall.
Okay, single car incident there. Thank you for Ryan Gill for that. Unfortunate day for them that will see their championship hopes all but evaporate. We talked about it all season long. They won our preseason winter testing in December at Sebring. They had 3 horrible races, nightmarish races in a row, had turned it around up until this point. But today, finally, the championship comes undone. They will not factor into the title, and that will be music to Christoph Estrepa's ears, who had a run at Klaus Nyring earlier, but has since lost that position. Klaus Nyring wins this race, though, Katrina. You alluded to this a moment ago. Klaus Nyring wins this race. We have a fight for the championship in LMGT3 next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's not worked out the way that Gill wanted it to, it might really, work in Nyring's favour. So hopefully we see a battle going into the last round. It would be great to see that it continue all the way, just like it looks like it's going to for the hypercar class as well. So hopefully we see the last, race be the one that's, the one that can answer all our questions to who is going to come out victorious.
Well, somebody's got to win, and we will figure that out in the final week of the championship, live here on RCI Fridays at Interlagos next week. And it's for all the marbles, all the chips and dip, all the beans, and only about 3, maybe 6 of the competitors are going to be happy. Let's hope Louis Kierton's one of those. Didn't finish my thought earlier. Louis Kierton, the junior of the Racing Kierton family, but towing the line here in LMU has arrived on the scene and has predominantly been shown since the start inside the top 5, now looking for a podium position as Facekas has fallen off the back of Pettick just a little bit. Capslar, I won't say they're gone. It's 1.7 seconds, but they're slowly building up the gap. Louis Kirton, though, looking incredibly strong, potentially for another podium.
Yeah, absolutely. And Curtin has been somebody that we have watched like every round get to the end. You know, we haven't had a single DNF from them. We have, like, they've just kept their head in the game. You know, they're just, you know, focused in and done well. So hopefully we see him get a podium. Do good for the points as well, and see how he ends up and where he comes in the standings after today's race.
You know, I just said that Pettick was falling back a little bit, but they haven't. Oh, Van der Velken. Van der Velken has gone off the road there in the 19 Iron Lynx Lamborghini. And they have returned back to the racetrack, and we didn't quite catch that, but that is in a section of the racetrack where if you don't have your throttle modulation down, it could have just gone around, especially if they're carrying a little bit of damage. Matt Malcolm into the pit lane. This is a pit stop. This is significantly early, but definitely well within the realm of possibility to make it to, again, the LMGT3s can almost make it 60 minutes on a balanced fuel load. So no dramas here. They might just be doing this to get themselves out of position or potentially undercut, but they're in there for a long time. They're making changes to that spirit of the race, Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very long pit stop from Matt, from somebody who's already been down the pit lane once to serve his penalty. Definitely looks like he's doing something extra to his car.
I had completely forgotten about that, but right you are. They had a penalty that sent them down the pit lane. And now Matt Malcolm serving their pit stop. We get back out there. The proud Scotsman doesn't give up very easily indeed. As a matter of fact, whenever he gives up, it's the hardware that gives up first, not him. 99% of the time. Klaus Nyring leading over Christoph Verstrepe. That's huge for the championship. Nyring needs this win here today to have a shot basically to win the championship next week at Interlagos. Adam Kapslar looking to gain on Barnabas Facekas in the Hypercar Championship as well, and that is going Adam's way. But like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, even if Adam wins and Barnabas finishes second, third, it doesn't matter, Katrina, right? Because they're still so close. They're only 3 points out now. It'd only be about 6 or 7 points. It's a couple of points for position, right? It's anybody's to play for as long as neither of those cars fall out of the race today. Well, it's going to be quite curious to see exactly what transpires in the championship. It's going to be very curious to see what happens here in the race. Verstrepe hasn't given up chasing Klaus Nyring. It's about a second the gap between the two of them. And it's been about that for the past 15 minutes or so. And handling dynamics, the characteristics of these LMGT3s, they change throughout the race. We've seen Verstrepe come on strong late in some of these races. We've seen Klaus Nyring fade out just a little bit in some of these races. Some of those not of their doing, it has to be said. We've already had one retirement in the GT3 class, and that is Ryan Gill after issues with the traction, the tires, and the graining potentially on those tires. Mentioned that the tire wear, tire degradation could be a problem here today. And just as I had said that earlier, it claimed its first victim, but not in the class I thought it would.
Yeah, absolutely. My question to you is, if you were in second place right now, you're comfortable in the standings, do you push it, or do you sit there and hope that Nyring, eventually, might make a mistake or something else happens?
Oh, something's happened to Barnabas Facekas. He's down to 7th place. He was up inside the top 3 or 4. Olivier Kirton has gone through into 3rd. Pettick, oh no! And this is horrible. This is horrible for Barnabas Facekas. The number 93 Peugeot has gone around, and That is not the way that car came from the factory. I have no idea what's happened. Olivier Kierton-Pettick and Roche now promoted up several positions. Fazekis, who was in the championship, this is the one thing, Katrina, I said that they could not have today. That is how the 2022 Peugeot looked. That is not what the 24 Peugeot should have looked like.
Yes. Looks very odd without its wing on it, doesn't it?
Well, they're going to have to come down pit lane, and that might be the hammer in the coffin for the champ. This was the one thing that they couldn't have, and I think it self-answers your question. How hard do you go for it? I don't think you overreact today, is what I would have been telling my driver, as he just can't get that thing turned with no rear downforce. It's almost like cars need wings, Peugeot.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They're definitely having an issue, but it looks like they are going to try and continue, which is, look, I say it every week, I stick by it. As they take a spin across the track.
Oh man, it's just it's horrible. I've been there. I've done that. I've done it in iRacing. I've done it in LMU. I've done it in R Factor before. Driving around without a rear wing, you might as well have icicle tires. It is just the worst feeling in the world. There's nothing you can do. You get above 50 kph and the thing just goes around. It doesn't handle anywhere like what you need. You wouldn't expect it to change that much, but it absolutely does. Could we be seeing, though, the end of the championship for Barnabas Fazekis? We've still got 34 minutes left to go today. Capslar still has to make it to the checkered flag tonight, but this could be exactly what the doctor ordered for Adam and the 83 Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're Adam and you're keeping a little eye on where everybody is and what's going on, you're sitting in a very comfortable position right now. You're very happy. 4 seconds away from the person behind you. Just take it easy at this point. We know that he knows how to drive the car and conserve energy and fuel, so I don't think this is going to be an issue for him.
We'll see how it plays out today. We've seen two championship contenders fall by the wayside now. Fazekis still to the attention of the team down in last place in the class. The only one retirement, though, remains Ryan Gillis. I think Barnabas is going to continue here because Barnabas knows that if Capslar has a dramatic exit, which they have had in this championship, this thing goes right back to being knotted up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other person that I'm going to mention here is Pettick. Like, if I'm sitting in fourth now, and I'm third in the standings, and my competitor in second is struggling, then I think this is the prime example where you put your head in the game. You got 32 minutes, put your foot down and see if you can do anything, and make up any more points to try and contend.
Here is the virtual energy, and barring a ridiculously long and nerdy explanation on how that works, just know that when the number gets down to 0, you've lost. You can't finish with no virtual energy. You have to have at least 1% in the tank. Think Formula E. And the virtual energy is representative of how, well, they're going to brim the virtual energy at the start, but they can only make it about under full chat, 45-ish minutes on a tank of energy. Now that it has normal fossil fuels in the car, pretty ironic or coincidental that Dutch Shell is the sponsor on the, of course, a Ferrari, but they got normal petrol sort of in the car, but it also has a hybrid system and a virtual energy, and that's what we're worried about. The actual petrol goes a little bit longer. The virtual energy reduces a little bit more. So we have seen, Katrina talked about it earlier, we saw the no stopper, which is okay as long as you can make it, and Fazekis did do that in the wet at Spa. I don't know if anybody can do it here today, but everyone hovering around the halfway point in the race, around 50%. It looks like everybody's doing a little bit better than 45 minutes. I would argue that most in the field in the hypercar class, Katrina, looks like they can make it to within a couple laps of the finish, in fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Which isn't unlike seen. We've seen it before where they've like they've had to come in on their last couple of laps just to literally do that little bit of a top up to get them through to the end. So it's just whether that they can conserve enough to then obviously get them last few laps to the end.
Pace gets back out there and doing exactly what we'd expect. Now, that's what the Peugeot should look like with a wing on the back of it. And they'll continue on. Don't know if there was contact between Louis Kierton or Pettick or any of those. We caught them when they were already in 7th place and they were having an additional spot of drama. So we don't know. We just know that Kierton was fighting them for 3rd place. So was Pettick fighting all of them. It's a 3-way fight for that spot indeed. But considering we haven't really seen any car-on-car violence today, I'm willing to believe it's that thing I've been talking about all day where you unsettle the car by letting off the throttle and it goes around. It's super easy to do in a hypercar. Somewhat impossible to do in an LMG T3, but very easy to do. It catches you unaware, especially if you're at a track like Circuit of the Americas that's newer to LMU, that you may not come to all the time. You may not be familiar with the dynamics of your car. That all being said, I think, I'm just doing the math in my head. Yeah, I wonder, and I've thought about this, Cormac Malloy and Callum Kerrigan, by the way, continue to pace each other, and they are both down in the pit lane at the same time. So you're seeing some of these cars like Mike Redford, the JMW Motorsport Ferrari, be promoted. That's because Cormac and Callum Kerrigan, who are running 4th and 5th respectively, are down the pit lane. Did like a standard stop. I don't see Callum Kerrigan. Is this a long stop for Callum?
Yeah, absolutely. About the halfway mark would make sense for people, that are wanting to just, split the race in half.
Oh.
Well,
that's damaged, right? I'm not. My eyes aren't that broken.
It looks damaged to me, but I don't know where he picked up that damage.
I definitely saw the back end of Cormac's car. That car did not look damaged. I wonder.
Unfortunate for Kerrigan, because they were definitely, on pace and having a fight. So
they were certainly on for a P4 potentially here today, and it's gone away here for Callum. Luckily, Callum will likely tell us exactly what has happened at a later point in the race. No dramas on the Cormac stop. They were in 4th at the time. They should cycle back through. But what I was doing a minute ago before that happened, I was doing the math in my head. Dangerous, I know. I think there are some LMG T3s that will get to the end of this race, or could get to the end of this race without having to make a stop at all.
Oh, that's exciting.
I think I could be a little off by that, but if the hypercars, and here's my logic, if the hypercars, 33 minutes left, we're on 48% energy, and we know the LMG T3s are a little bit more efficient with their energy, i.e. they go slower, I think that's the difference. A couple of laps, I reckon some of them can make it. Klaus Nyring will not be one of those, according to that. I love that the graphics work. Studio 397, if you ever watch our videos, thank you so much for that lovely graphic, getting that working for the WEC HUD. It's so good. It's going to be close. 26 and a half minutes left to go. I would argue they've got about 30 or so % on that bar. Oh, it's so close. And if I was out there, I'd pop that bad boy in lean or recovery mode, and I would try and make it. Cormac, who has been down pit lane, has 75%. Obviously, they'll be able to make it, but that's because they have done their stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I also would be putting it, and trying to conserve and see, as we see Callum pulling back out of his pit box after what looks like he's done the damage. Oh, he's changed the brake, is what I'm hearing in my ear.
Callum Kerrigan changed his brakes. So that would mean that he left the brake change checked and didn't uncheck it If you've ever played iRacing, for those of you at home, for the benefit, you know how when you come down pit lane and you've unselected tires or damage, and you come back out of the pit lane, it automatically reselects. LMU has a similar function, and, well, we saw it from the very first race we did. It caught several drivers off guard where they were in there for a long time.
Oh.
Ellis Buckley goes around but saves it. No damage there except onto the tires.
I think, Jesse, to be fair, is I think this might be the second time that Callum has chosen to change his brakes in the middle of the race.
So what are you implying? That he knows better? He should know better?
You'd think so.
Hmm.
If you've made the mistake once and you've owned up and you said, yeah, I did it.
Well, Callum, if you're listening, Katrina says, not impressed. Should have learned from your mistakes. What's that old saying? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Or wait,
Shame
no,
on
it's the
you.
other way around, I think, actually.
One of them.
It's one way around, or it isn't. Kevsar leading Rodriguez now by 5.5 seconds. The Ferrari over the Alpine. Louis Kierton in an impressive third place, looking to get, I believe, at least their second podium in the championship, making the Kierton family very proud indeed. Pettick in third place now with Roche, the top 5. Eckhart, Skidnov, Ramos, Whittle, Vandervelken, the top 10. Klaus Nyring still leads Verstrepe in the LMGT3 field over Daniel Durrett, who's having another good but quiet workman-like performance. We don't ever talk about Daniel Durrett in the number 70 McLaren, but there always seem to be right around that third place spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody who just, drives very sensibly. We don't really see a lot of them. We don't ever really see any incidents or anything by them, which is always good to see.
Well, if you're just joining us today for the very first time, thank you very much for joining us here on RCI Fridays. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina and Ted Edwards behind the cameras. Special guest Amy, who's been checking in with us today, and we'll hear from her at the end of the race on her first LMU experience as well. But if you're here, why not leave a like, subscribe, or a follow, depending on whatever platform you're watching on. We'll be back live on Monday for continuing coverage of ACC's Janetta Cup Season 3 here on RCI TV. And, of course, Katrina and I will be back with you on Friday for the series finale of LMU Sprint Series, the decider at Interlagos in Brazil. And it might be winner take all, but time will certainly tell. And, of course, a big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible. Ready, Set, Sim. Go check out their sim rig builder over at ReadySetSim.com. They literally have everything. It's super simple. It's point and click, build the sim rig of the budget or the dreams over at Ready, Set, Sim. Coach Dave Delta, I would imagine there are significant amount of drivers in today's race who are using Coach Dave Delta products and setups in the race. Be kind of silly if you didn't. They offer iRacing, LMU, ACC setups, and more. CoachDaveDelta.com. Greenman Gaming offers you the games that you want at a discounted price. Go to greenmangaming.com with the link in the description and check out all their games on offer. I was actually on there a little bit earlier today, and I got the look from my wife. I own enough games. Moser Racing. Quality leader in direct drive hardware that does not break the bank. Whether you're looking for a rim, a base, or a whole system, moserracing.com. And a big shout out to Motorsports UK. We are a recommended esports community over there. We thank them very much for recommending us, and we appreciate them indeed. Callum Kerrigan, though, has just been off the racetrack. Katrina, what'd you see?
It looks like he's just, it looks like it was a single car incident, maybe, brakes be cold after changing them.
Well, once again, another crash for Callum Kerrigan in a day that saw them inside the top 5 looking for more. And was completely evaporated. Be curious to see what Cormac Malloy does about this, because some drivers, they drive better when they're under pressure. I know Cormac gets bored easily, and he doesn't stop me if this sounds like somebody you know, Katrina. When he's by himself, he kind of gets sort of bored and he gets out of a rhythm, but when he's actively fighting somebody, he's locked in and he drives not only better but faster, in my opinion. So I wonder now that... Yeah, go on.
I feel like I do know someone like that.
That's weird. That's crazy. It's almost like every time I've ever seen Ted Edwards crash, he's sort of not
alone,
battling somebody, or it's the last lap of the race and he's trying to overtake somebody, usually named Gil.
Yeah.
Weird. Oh my goodness. Not often that the person that you end up killing gets to show up at their own funeral. But that's exactly what happened with Ted Edwards and Ryan Gill as they went to Donington in real life several years ago. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's an accident in ACC years ago between Ted Edwards and Ryan Gill, where Ted Edwards missed this braking point and took Ryan Gill out of a race. And then later that year, they went to Donington Park in real life and visited the spot of the accident. Bit morbid, Ted, if I'm honest, but you know.
I think it was a nice little bonding moment for them both.
There's only one person. Ted has just said that it was just a little bit of a cuddle. Too hard, Ted. Too hard. Softer next time, a little bit. All right. We saw Callum Kerrigan. Do you want to comment, Katrina? Go on.
No, I was just going to move on and say about Callum. To be honest,
he's your problem. In 20 minutes, he's your problem. So if you want to say anything, you go ahead.
No, thank you. I do actually want to say something, but it's completely unrelated to Ted because, actually, looking at Louis Curtin in third place, we have never seen a podium finish from him in this series so far.
Really?
He has finished fourth twice, but he has never seen a podium finish. So if this continues to be as it is right now, then we will see him get his first podium place.
Fair enough. I assumed that he had done. He hasn't done. Excellent reporting there. So looking for his very first podium. Now this is interesting. This is the electric energy graph, or the virtual energy graph, if you prefer, for the hypercar class. 31% for Kapslar. I think he can make it. So can Richard Whittle.
I think if I was any one of these other drivers on the track, I would be going to him and asking him for tips and, trying to see if he'd, tell me.
So there are a couple of techniques you can use. You have different energy modes in these cars. You also have the ability to do this old school action that I'm familiar with from oval racing, where you clutch, and that's exactly what's happening right there. Louis Curtin is super clutching. They're using the natural contour of Big Red to help them slow the car down and not use any fuel. So being off the throttle, right, Katrina, is better for fuel economy because you're not the throttle body of the car, whether that be electronic or physical, is not open. Mm-hmm. Even better than that is when you clutch in and you don't send the engine through the revolutions per minute as it's coming down through the gear. So if you're clutching in and doing that, you're saving even more fuel than if you were just lifting and coasting. That's how they're saving virtual energy, because they're not using it on the over revs. They're not using it to the fullest extent at the end of the straightaways, and they're lifting and coasting. They're saving their fuel. They're saving their energy. And you can do it at a lot of places around this racetrack because it is, obviously you can't do it down the straight here, but you'll see they're going to let off early, I bet. And they kind of do, but they were trying to make a pass here on an LMGT3, but that is super interesting how this is the evolution. We're witnessing the evolution. You would have never seen this 3 or 4 weeks ago, but because of what, I think it was Face Kiss, wasn't it? What they did at Spa, it has made everyone in this hypercar class rethink how you run a race, how you figure your economy. Check this out. Listen to this. So what that is, that may not look like much, but he let off way early. Normally you would attack Big Red, which is turn number 1 here at COTA. You would attack that corner, and you would see a more dramatic approach going from throttle to brake. But he's coasting, lifting, and clutching, all of which is saving minute, tiny little thimbles full of energy and fuel. But if you do it all race long, it saves you a pit stop.
Yeah, which, as we saw last round, it was just so effective. You know, it helped them. They managed, like Facekiss, we saw him get to the end, and he didn't have to do a pit stop, whereas, you know, others did. And yeah, it is crazy to see. Like you said, the fact that at the start of this championship we didn't see it, we didn't even know it existed. You know, we didn't even have the lines on the graph. Like, we've come so far in this like championship, it blows my mind.
This is incredible. You don't see this a lot. You got all of us geeking out up here in the box because brand new sim, you don't know what to expect. I think we signed on with saying that we're none the wiser, and the drivers are none the wiser. We're all learning at the same time. But to be able to watch an evolution of a sport live is some of the most incredible things to me. We're seeing drivers get smarter, get more savvy. And if you're Adam Kapslar and you're out there in the lead and you're not racing anybody, you're afforded the opportunity to try and do this. And you have nothing to lose. You're 10 seconds in front of Rodriguez. It makes a lot of sense. Klaus Neiring will not be able to make it to the end of this race based on how much energy they have left. 14 minutes is way too long for as little as they have in that car. I wonder if fuel saving is more possible in a hypercar because of the speed versus an LMGT3, or maybe they just haven't figured out how to do it. Either way, Klaus is not doing anything like what our hypercar leader is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like, you know, that is the case, and that will be the case. But if that's the case for one of them and they're all in the same boat, then, you know, everybody needs to come in for a pit. It's not like you're going to overcut someone because all of the GT3s need to come in. So as long as we see that, you know, no one's got super loads of energy, which doesn't look like is the case. So
yeah, all these drivers are going to have to come in. Daniel Durrett as well. Now, see, if I was Daniel Durrett, I would have... Pardon?
Did you say you'd come in?
No, if I was Daniel Durrett, I would have been clutching. I would have been doing everything I possibly could to save some of my virtual energy. I would have... Because Daniel Durrett has been in no man's land in third place this entire race, has not been threatened by almost anybody throughout the majority of this event. I would have been trying to make it to the end. That's the exact right position to be doing that in. And I just wonder if maybe they know something that we don't, that it's just not as efficient or as effective in a slower speed car to do something like that. But we'll see. Maybe we'll ask some of the drivers before next week on what the difference is, because these hypercars, some of them anyway, have certainly got this figured out now, that you can make it. It is possible. We thought, I guess, or I thought, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak for you. I thought it was only possible on a wet racetrack. Kapslar, I think, is going to make it and going to prove me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I thought this, I was under the same impression. I thought it was something to do with,
oh,
you know...
man! Sorry, that was a wicked slide right there. You were saying...
I was going to say, I thought it was something to do with the wet tyres and, you know, the wet conditions that we had last week, but that definitely doesn't look like it's the case, and it looks like something that they've been able to, you know, carry across all the way over to America.
Well, here's what happened. A week ago, we had one car do it. This week, we have 3 or 4 of them that are trying to do it. Next week, we're going to have all 12 of them trying to do it. Be like Formula One almost, where they're having to manage the fuel and they're trying to race each other at the same time. I mean, a driver's mind is somewhat finite. They're not known to be scholars, racing drivers, so I wonder how much they can take.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what they say, if you can't beat them, you have to join them, and I feel like this is what we've seen.
It's
like,
true.
You can't beat someone who's not having to do a stop, so what do? You have to learn the ways of what they're doing and do it with them. You know, to be up there, you know, to be contending with those that don't have to stop. You have to have a stop, then you are behind. That's how it works.
About 10 minutes left to go in today's race. Some of the cars will not have to come in, and we know that pretty assuredly that Capslar will be a car that does not have to come in. I think Louis Kierton was going to be okay. Louis Kierton doing a double experiment today, has the hard tires on the front of the car and is clutching that hypercar, trying to save virtual energy, and I think it's working. Michelle Rodriguez, I'm actually unsure, but they are in P2. They have made a humongous amount of gains today, coming up from about 5th place up into 2nd in the Alpine. Looking like another great result for Rodriguez. Pettit attempting to get his very first podium in the series that he's already been quite strong in. Peter Roche, a solid day inside the top 5. The only DNFs, both in the LMGT3 field, Kerrigan and Gill. Actually, the fewest DNFs in a race this season thus far, strangely enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It may be because, we didn't see as many cars actually, make their way over. It may be that, people are just finding this track a little bit more easy. Obviously, no rain and the race conditions can play a part in it as well.
Been incredible weather here in Austin, Texas, and you don't always get that in my experience here. It goes from way too cold to way too hot. You get 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall where it's perfect weather, and then beyond that, it is absolutely too hot or too cold. Shout out to anybody from the Austin area that knows exactly what the hell I'm talking about. It's not great. It's not great, the weather. Although the weather is frequently good, it's just never the temperature you would expect it to be. It's like living with a finicky partner. That's what I'm going to say. But you wouldn't know anything about that, Ted.
No, you guys didn't hear this, but he just laughed. I just want to put it out there. I just want to make sure that that's known.
Oh, Ellis Buckley. Did they make it to the wall? I don't think so. They saved it from the Goodyear wall. That car has certainly struggled a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't seem to have been as comfortable as we see a huge move from Klaus Nyring in the pit.
I'm sorry. Yep, there's Christoph Stuypa. I was wondering where they had went. Klaus Nyring comes in. That triggers the response from Christoph Stuypa down the pit lane. And as you say, that was a huge miss by Klaus Nyring. That was at least a second's worth of pushing, and that's huge considering the gap was not that big to begin with. Matt Malcolm has had an off, and I think that's on the Andretti corner. That is on the Andretti corner. And you wonder how you get in that position. I guess if you lock it up and you can spin off in that direction. Normally you just end up in the wall, though, so well done to keep it out of the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like that they managed to just, get it to the point where it didn't hit the wall and then managed to get out of that situation. So
right here on the racetrack, David Pettit has re-caught up to Louis Kierton for 3rd place. How bad does Louis want this podium, I wonder?
Probably bad, I was going to say, but
of course we don't know. We could see if we switch to the energy HUD. Oh, Skidnov has gone off. That car's damaged, and they are a long way off. Is this in the right-hander? It is, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Is that the end of the long straight? Is it? No, it isn't. Is that a big red? No. That's at the hairpin at the bottom of the race course. That's turn 11. That threw me off. I've never seen that particular sand trap on the track. Louis Kierton lost that spot. This is a good point, though. I'm curious. Kierton is one of those that's trying to make it to the end. Is David Pettit trying to do that, or are they going for it here? Be curious to see what their energy looks like. Mm-hmm. Oh, Pettit has more. So you have to wonder is that tire degradation, is that pace loss out of the front hard tires from Louis Kierton's Penske.
You would think so. Now we've seen the energy and how much energy they have. It does look like the fact that, you know, that tyre choice might be playing a part in the later part of the races, which is not ideal.
I think all these cars can make it, you know. Skidnov is close. Vanderveken, I don't think, can make it. But I think all these cars in the top 6 can make it. Jensen Acker, and Ramos, that's Skidnov, into the pit lane. We saw Sergei Skidnov have that issue. So they're coming in to fix the car. But I think everyone in front of them, Ramos, Roche, Kierton, Pettick, Rodriguez, Capsule, I think they can all make it here.
I think you're right, Jesse. I think this will be the first race that we see multiple people not having to do a pit stop towards the end of the race here.
Incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Louis Kierton losing out that spot, no longer in a podium position here, but with 4.5 minutes left to go, anything is possible. I'm not entirely sure the hard front tires and the medium rear tires has worked, and it's a huge slide there, and I think that rather highlights the grip loss. I think we can safely say now it is a tire problem.
I'm gonna point this out because I think whilst we're talking about it, it's number 9 BMW Skidnov is also on the hard medium split, and we've seen them go round just a few laps ago, so it definitely looks like we could be seeing an issue with the people that are having split tire choices.
Ooh, huge lock there by Louis Kierton. I said you can lock it. It's not common, but you can do it, and I wonder if some of the tire deg is causing that. They're getting a little bit too forward on the brake bias. Rather be too forward than too backward in a hypercar, if I'm honest. I've done it the other way around, and you just spin out a bunch. It's not very fun at all. Louis continuing around, 1 spot shy of the podium, but not necessarily giving up. Pettick's still just right there, but here comes Peter Roche in the 36 Alpine, trying to get even closer to maybe put Kierton back down to 5th place. Well, we checked in with Amy at the beginning of the race today. Well, it's her first ever sort of sim race that she's watched in the box. She's been taking notes furiously. Amy, welcome back in. What have you seen? What are your thoughts on your first race today?
Thank you very much, Jyoti. Well, firstly, what an interesting race and some shocking moments for number 93. It was such a shame, but he came back fighting, so I hope that that's not his confidence going forward in the races to come. But I do want to highlight and appreciate the professionalism between Carrion and Manoni. It was a great one-to-one battle between them, and as I quote from Gandalf the Great, I think Manoni was saying, "You shall not pass." Also, I just want to do a quick shout out to both of you and Katrina, as you guys have noticed so much while I still feel like a turtle chasing a rabbit at the moment. But as they say, slow and steady win the race, so a lot to learn, but that's what I took out from this race. So what are your final thoughts, guys?
I think it's crazy, but back to you. You want to shout out the Kaiju guys?
It was just a shame that Rob and Grim was not able to make this race this time, so hopefully next time I will see them round.
There you go. Amy, of course, joining us from the Kaiju group that has quite a large following here at RCI, and we thank them very much for not only participating in the race, but also being a huge part of the staff here at RCI. Amy, before we let you go, I just got to ask, what are your thoughts, your personal thoughts, first sim race, trying to take it all in? I mean, there's a lot that goes on, but is it something that you could see yourself doing in the future, commentating these races?
Well, if I'm going to be very honest with you, Jesse, it was very difficult to understand and to quote so quickly while you guys just highlight so many factors. So it may be a struggle at first, but I hope with a little bit more time, I might be able to stick around. So you haven't heard the last from me just yet.
There you go. Amy joining us here at RCI. Maybe hear them in the future on some broadcast glad to have you with us. And the final minute of the race, Katrina, I turn back to you as we still have this fight for 4th place. Is this devastating for Louis Kierton if he doesn't finish at least 4th after this?
I think so. I think you take a gamble, you take a risk with your tyres, and it doesn't pay off. And I think it hurts a little bit, and it's a bit upsetting as we see them, still battling out on the race track. So I think, for me personally, it is a shame to see him as we see Peter just literally have the inside line, going through that corner, just making it look very easy. There's definitely some tyre situation going on, or something going on with Kierton's car, because it's not.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the tires are just going. I think the hards. I don't think it's the mediums on the rear that's necessarily the problem. I think it's the grip on the hards are going away, and because it's 2 mixed compounds, you're not getting even grip, and it makes the car even harder to drive is what's going on as time has elapsed here. Capslar coming around, and just as we suspected, the top 6 have not come in, and they are all going back around. Capslar is going to come around. They're entering turn 12 now to finish the race, but that fight between Roche and Kierton not quite over. But just give a word, Katrina, for Adam Capslar, who has done everything they possibly can and looking like champion-elect after a day like today.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen it from Caspar before. It's not unusual to us up here, but to be able to just get out there and keep it clean and keep it on track, to be able to do what he's doing to his car and be one of them people that that has been able to learn how to clutch and save your energy and make it count, is hats off to him. Well done and well deserved.
Capslar came in the championship leader by 3 points, needed a good day over his competitors, and he's done that. The pole position and the win and a no-stopper for AF Corsa. It's Adam Capslar winning the day and potentially even the championship. A complete game from Capslar and one of the best raced races we've ever seen. Cars in the back of the hypercar grid having to come into the pit lane because they essentially had an additional lap to do over the leaders. But for Michel Rodriguez and Alpine, it was a workmanlike day that saw them gain 3 spots and the second step of the podium. David Pettick was all over the top 5 today. It ends up on the podium at the end using what we would deem the correct strategy. Roche and Kierton are in the pit lane. Is that because they crossed the line? I think it is. Peter Roche over Louis Kierton, who does fall down to 5th from 3rd just a few laps ago. Klaus Nyring, Katrina, though, controlled this race, had that opening fight with Verstappen, but after that, never looked back, never put a foot wrong. He's going to get rewarded here today with a win they had to have to stay in this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, like I say, we saw Gil go out, but Nyring took the lead of this race very early on and, kept it and has kept it throughout. So well driven and well done to Klaus.
Coming to get the checkered flag for the spirit of the race, Ferrari, the 155 of Klaus Nyring, about to take the checkered flag, and there will not be a champion-elect in the LMGT3 group today, as Klaus Nyring has assured a win today and assured a chance at the championship at Interlagos in 1 week. Christoph Verstappen gave a hell of a run today in a fight, but they're going to come up 1 spot shy. It's another podium for Christoph Verstappen, and still your championship leader. Daniel Durrett comes across P3. Cormac Malloy, in a debut race here, comes home in an incredible 4th. Mike Redford, quiet day for Redford, but a good day. A top 5 for them as well as the final cars come across the line. That's not what we thought we were going to see today. Ted Edwards has shown us an interesting message from Michel Rodriguez, Katrina. 0.2% virtual energy as they cross the line. Cutting it a little close, are we?
Yeah, that is definitely a little bit of a worry as you cross the line. You see that, I
Ooh,
think
I
I would
lied.
be.
I lied to everybody. I said you had to have 1%. Turns out you only need 0.1% in the tank to count, but it is legal. Adam Kapslar, 32 laps, wins it by 25 seconds. Michelle Rodriguez in the Alpine P2. Pettick rounds out your podium positions. Roche Kierton, the top 5. Ramos, Skidnov, Whittle, Akar, Van Driesch, the top 10 in hypercar. Van der Velken and Facekiss, the rest of the finishers in hypercar class. What a disappointing day it was for Facekiss.
Yeah,
LMGT3.
absolutely.
LMGT3 Klaus Nyring, 29 laps, 14 seconds over Christoph Estrepa. Daniel Durrett, another quiet day in the number 70 McLaren, but another podium nonetheless. Cormac Malloy getting it done in 4th place with Mike Redford in tow, rounding out the top 5. Ellis Buckley, despite it all, with a decent finish here today. Congrats to the 86 Ferrari and Ellis Buckley. Matt Malcolm, drama in the middle part of the race, relegates them to 7th. Ibiza in 8th. Callum Kerrigan had a frustrating day, but nobody had a more frustrating day than Ryan Gill, who saw his championship hopes dashed. Well, that just about wraps it up for today, which means it's time for Katrina to summarize what the heck we saw here at Circuit of the Americas, a track that saw significant race signouts, assuming they'll be joining us at Interlagos in a week's time. But the racing was interesting. The strategy was even more spicy. And I think we're going to see an excellent mix myself. But I'm curious what you think we're going to see at Interlagos in 1 week.
I'm looking forward to it, Jesse. I'm looking forward to everybody taking on, board what has happened today, with the amount of hypercars that we saw that didn't have to finish and, didn't have to not finish, didn't have to go to the pits to finish. And I'm excited to see if, we have more of that in the future and in next week's race. And yeah, I'm excited to see who comes out on top of the championship standings after the eventful race we had from a couple of people that were definitely up there in the standings that didn't finish.
Well said indeed. Just a reminder that you can join any championship already in progress by going to racerci.com and signing up today. Next broadcast on the RCI channel is on Monday. That continuation of the Geneta Cup on Assetto Corsa Competizione. They are going to Alton Park. Oh man, that is always going to be a fun race. That's going to be crazy. I'm not on that broadcast, but I'm going to be watching that one because it's absolutely insane. Night Owl Hyper Sprint. Night Owl like you've never seen it before. Saturday night, but in Le Mans Ultimate Hyper Sprint or hyper cars in sprint format. A huge grid. It's going to be incredible. Way more hypercars than you would see on a normal WEC grid, I would imagine. Race number 1 at Sebring, and that championship starts April 5th. Still time to sign up for that. Of course, you can also sign up for the RSS, the Ready Set Sim Endurance Series over on iRacing. The next race there, April the 12th, it's at Daytona. It allows you to enter as a team or by yourself. For all that and more, racerci.com. One final thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. RSS, Coach Dave Delta, Greenman Gaming, Moser Racing, and of course, a big shout out to Motorsport UK for recommending us as an esports community. Well, the Hypercar Championship took a huge hit today, but it actually got closer in LMGT3. Still, nothing is set in stone. If Adam Kapslar in Hypercar fails to finish and Facekiss finishes well at Interlagos, Barnabas Facekiss can still win this championship. Meanwhile, it is going to be a slugfest between Klaus Nyring and Christoph Estrepa in the LMGT3 field to win it all. Katrina, what better way to end our first LMU championship with a couple of championship fights in the final week? And let's go somewhere warm and sunny and beautiful. Why not Brazil?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it next week. for the final.
I cannot wait. Well, that's just about going to do it from us tonight. We wish you very good evening. We hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. On behalf of everyone here at RCI, we thank you so much for your likes, your subscribes, your follows, and just watching as well. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Katrina with Ted Edwards behind the cameras. And a special shout out to Amy, who joined us this evening, giving us her 2 cents. We'll see you next week. Who will be the champion? Until then, have a good night.
You ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Get behind the wheel, let's go. Grip the road, feel the flow. Thunder roaring, steel alive. Live this dream and drive. Tires burning with gasoline. Push the limits, chasing green. One shot, don't slow. Go on, we'll take control. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. We're chasing taillights. The miles they fade, but they don't die. Faster now, the hours fly by. Sweat and gears, hearts in sync. On the edge, on the brink. Clock ticks down, stakes are high. One mistake, we kiss us goodbye. Don't slow down, we're not done. Finish line for the strong ones. Engines scream alive tonight. Blazing past the red line. Outrun the night, won't lose this fight. Follow the road, red line for show. We're chasing taillights, don't let go. Under the stars, we'll go so far. This is who we are. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Chasing taillights. Feel the rush. See the goal. Every second, take control.